New to casinos and not sure what to play? Well, try blackjack first. It has a lower house advantage compared to other table games, making it especially player-friendly. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith-Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread water, so I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength. We need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you here for our Tuesday edition of the show as we close the book on the 2024-25 college basketball season. For those of you who missed it last night, the Florida Gators come back again to win a national championship. We'll get to that in just a minute. Of course, we'll get to the very latest in the National Football League in terms of what's next because the NFL draft is right around the corner. So, of course, Adam Caplan will join us on the show. We'll discuss that as well. In addition, of course, we have guest contributors today from Sporting News. Gilbert McGregor will put a bow on the championship and also take a look at the upcoming NBA schedule. The playoffs and play-in games, of course, begin next week. So, without a doubt, let's get to the top story of the day, which is my school. I mean, it's crazy to think that the college that you went to could produce a national championship, but indeed that was the case. So, good night for me, folks. 65-63, the final. The Gators win. They are champions, and they trailed in so many games in the NCAA tournament. Remember, they were down by 3 against Connecticut. They came back to win. They trailed against Texas Tech by 9. Came back to win that one, and Auburn was controlling this game at halftime. But really, the shocking one was last night, seeing Houston go up 12 points in the second half of the game, but Florida surged back as they have so many times before. Houston could not get a shot off with just ticks on the clock, which led to Florida capturing the championship. And of course, celebrations all around for their head coach, Todd Golden, Walter Clayton Jr., and of course, we'll also hear from Kelvin Sampson, who had a great season coaching Houston, but inevitably did not capture the title.
It's a heck of an accomplishment. I'm super proud of everybody in my program, top to bottom. My staff, who's been together for 3 years, has worked incredibly hard to help get our players to this point. And our players, they've been the difference all the way along. Been incredibly consistent all year, have worked with a great work ethic. And obviously we have an incredibly talented group, one of the most talented groups individually in America, but I do think what separates us and what has separated us all season long is our team talent and the way our guys have played together and for each other all year. And because of that, we can call each other national champions for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, for sure. I seen a lot going on. Coach had said we felt like they was gonna try to get some for either Cryer or Roberts, and Sharp kind of creeped down to the baseline. I seen a back screen, so I'm yelling back screen at Doe. And then Sharp ended up slipping it. They tried to set like a little elevator screen, so just went out there. You know, we work on it in practice, kind of closing out, jumping to the side so you don't foul the shooter. So he kind of pump fake, threw the ball down, ended up being a good play. Doe got on it. We won the game, man. And the feeling just surreal. So it's a crazy feeling, man. I honestly can't even explain it, but it feels good, though.
I'm not going to sit up here and poor mouth and pity mouth us. You know, we held that team to 65 points. You know, Clayton and Martin combined to go 5 for 20. If you had told me we'd hold those two guys to 5 for 20, and we had a good plan, we just didn't score it well enough to win. We scored it well enough to be in a position to win. But you know, it comes down to those at the end. You got to get a shot. That's you got to do better than that.
Tough ending for Houston after a great season. Meanwhile, as we pivot over to potentially some big news in college sports, you may remember that the NCAA already agreed to pay over $3 billion in damages to past and current athletes over federal antitrust lawsuits. There's a possibility of a legal settlement that could reshape the business of college sports coming closer. It's in court right now. There's no final approval between the NCAA and attorneys representing all these past, present, and either future Division I athletes, but essentially the landscape has changed and they're getting paid, so they want to get taken care of for the players who previously played in college sports as well. Also on Monday, the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Commission has issued a cease and desist letter to Kalshi, Robinhood, and also Crypto.com to halt the sport event contracts in Maryland. These are the prediction markets we've been talking about so much. Maryland asking at this point to a cease and desist from those companies, quoting, saying that each of Maryland's legal wagering sports operators completed a rigorous licensing process and is subject to extensive regulations that include responsible gaming requirements, and the commodity traders are not bound by those same guardians. Also saying from the director of Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Commission, John Martin, they're conducting sports wagering without a license and doing so avoiding the collection of sports wagering, here's the key word, taxes that legal operators pay to the state. Going to have to pay those taxes, I think, for a lot of these different companies, or else they're going to get forced out as well. All right, Major League Baseball yesterday. Incredible start again for Hunter Green. He's been fantastic to start the season. He pitched 8 2/3 scoreless inning, almost complete the game. He was let in for the last out, but ended up walking a batter and gave up a hit. He was taken out. He has 15 strikeouts in his last 15 innings. James Wood, 2-run home run, helped overcome Shohei Ohtani, who had a home run, a triple, a single, not a double, almost a cycle. He also walked. He was 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Mackenzie Gore's off to a fantastic start this season and slowly creeping up in the Cy Young early conversation. Here's Dave Martinez on his ace.
It started with Mackenzie Gore. I mean, he was really good. I mean, he went out for that 6th inning and threw the ball really well.
I know you usually aren't going to ask for 5 outs on the third day in a row.
No,
what made you want to go to Finnegan?
We had a chance to win the game, right? I mean, and he went through that inning and had 12 pitches. He came back out. When he came back in the dugout, he looked at me and he goes, "I can get you 3 outs." So he's reason why he's here. I mean, he closes games for us. So he did that today and did it really well.
Referring to Kyle Finnegan pitching 3 days in a row. Also, the San Diego Padres have now the best record in baseball with LA's loss. They're 9-2 on the season. Jake Cronenworth, Fernando Tatis homered as well. The Orioles rough up Zach Gallen, 5 runs. They beat the Diamondbacks 5-1. Zach Eflin pitched 6 innings in this one. Also, Gunnar Henderson had a nice game. Brandon Hyde addressed that after. In addition, Eflin left with shoulder fatigue.
Gunnar had a lot of hard hits before today. How nice was it to finally see some go down?
Yeah, this is looked like he's getting his timing back and took some really good swings today. And I just thought our at bats, the first 5 innings were absolutely fantastic off Gallen. That's some of our best at bats of the year. Just how patient we were, how we didn't chase, everything we kind of talked about before the game. Guys put into play tonight. We went to sleep a little bit after the 5th, but off Gallen, I thought that our bats were absolutely outstanding.
Casey Mize pitches 6 innings in the snow. Detroit beats New York 6-2. Mize 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, and 6 strikeouts. And they'll play at 1 o'clock Eastern today. Also, the Mets and Marlins will play this afternoon instead of tonight. Apparently, it's cold in New York. I wouldn't know about that. Sorry, guys living in Florida. Carlos Rodon, 6 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, 8 strikeouts. Not happy with his performance after.
Just baseball. There's a couple pitches I want back. The one to Malloy up and away. Supposed to be down and away and missed the changeup to Ibanez. The walks to I think it's 8 and 9. Right, yeah, and then another one to Rogers as well. Just bottom half of the order, just got to go attack, and just frustrating that I'm falling behind those guys and just need to be better with getting strike one and getting ahead of those guys.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed his 14-year, $500 million contract, and the Jays also beat the Red Sox 6-2. Good day for them. The Mets behind Kodai Senga shut out the Marlins 2-0, and Justin Steele 7 shutout innings as the Cubs beat the Rangers by a final of 7-0. We recap and put a bow on the college basketball season and look ahead to tonight's NBA matchups. Gilbert McGregor of Sporting News will join us right after the break here on NewsWire, so stay with us here on SportsGrid. We'll be right back.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
He'll never stop shooting a basketball the rest of his life. All he's going to do is become one of those old, famous ex-players that's in the Hall of Fame, that's a legend, that shows up at games, just like his dad did. His dad shows up at games. His dad was never as good as he is. And his brother is the lost soul. Like, they don't even care about his broke ass. This guy, Steph Curry, can play forever.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
College basketball season comes to an end in San Antonio with the Florida Gators cutting down the Nets last night. Very entertaining, exciting final. 76-70. What was the final score in this game? I'm sorry, 76-70? I can't. 65-63. 65-63 was the final score there. My bad. Almost pulled a Ron Burgundy there on the show. Gilbert McGregor is with us here on NewsWire. Gilbert, what an exciting finish there. Look, this game had everything. It had defense, it had some offense, and it had some drama there in the end. I know Houston's going to look back and be upset that they didn't get a shot off there, but naturally they should be more upset that they had the Gators up 12 and weren't able to close it out.
Absolutely. Feels like kind of the story of the tournament with a number of teams who were eliminated. they wish they could have that one back. And I know that Houston's going to wish they could have that one back. Like you said, beyond that final possession, not getting a shot up is devastating, but also knowing that you were up double digits in that second half and seeming like you were firing on all cylinders. But what we've seen from this Florida Gators team all year, they're relentless. You can never count them out. There were times in this tournament where there was a UConn game or the Texas Tech game or even the game in the Final Four against Auburn. They found ways to win. They did it again, and they end out on top because of it.
Now, Walter Clayton Jr., I mean, if you told me he was 1 of 7 from three-point range and 3 for 10 from the field, I would have been very concerned and said the Gators probably don't win this game. But Will Richard came off the bench. He had a nice game. But the bottom line is that, as you know, and I heard Kelvin Sampson talking, we just played a clip from it, Gilbert, is that Houston just didn't really do anything offensively to challenge Florida. So many missed opportunities there. I mean, Clayton's going to be a fantastic pro. He had an off night. Maybe Houston's defense was the reason for that. But Houston did everything right except win the game.
You know, thinking about Clayton, and it's a conversation I was having with some friends while watching the game, is, you know, he was scoreless in the first half, and Elijah Martin struggled in the first half, and they were only down by 2 points. So if you're Florida, you felt pretty good where you were. 2 of your most prolific players basically hadn't scored in the first half, and you were right there. And it was just basically a waiting game of, will Walter Clayton make those plays? He's a big-time player, and even though he only finished with 11 points, some of those buckets that he got were in such big spots. I think about the three-pointer he got, what they were doing, running actions for him to get him open, to knock down some shots, get to the rim, get in the lane, and finish around the rim. And big-time players make those types of big-time plays, and he did it exactly when they needed it. It was a big part of their comeback that they did. And like you said, Houston could not respond. LJ Cryer was great in the game, but his moments came a little too early. And when they needed him most, they weren't able to get anything down the stretch.
Yeah, and I guess good news, bad news. The Gators have a championship. A lot of those kids are going to be leaving after the year. You win a championship, that happens. But you mentioned Cryer, who was 6 for 18 from the field. But I guess the good news for Houston is that they can bring a lot of their players back. In this day and age of transfers, NILs, who really knows? But Houston definitely poised to make another run next year.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, anytime you have Kelvin Sampson at the helm, that is a team that's going to be okay. This team has an identity. They were just there a couple of years ago. They didn't get to the national championship game, but they were in the Final Four in 2021, and they have a chance every year. They're going to reload with some talent, and I think that they'll be an impressive team again. The Big 12 is always a difficult conference to compete in, but it also gives you a chance to really just sharpen the tools as you go towards March. And I expect to see Houston again as a top 2 or 3 seed, and maybe even a 1 seed again next year in March.
All right, so now let's get Gilbert to the NBA. That's where our focus goes. We've got those play-in tournament games coming up next week. Tonight, the Knicks will play the Celtics one more time during the regular season. The Knicks with Jalen Brunson, he is back. They are 1-point favorites, a total 221.5. Motivation is just obvious at this point. The teams that are motivated, the spreads are high. When it's not, you see games like this. Both teams still playing for a little bit here down the stretch. And who knows, maybe they play each other in the playoffs too.
Absolutely. Playing for a little bit of pride, if nothing else. These teams are pretty much locked in where they are. Boston still has an outside shot at the number 1 seed until they lose a game or until Cleveland wins a game. But there's an opportunity. Do you see this team who you're going to probably see in a few weeks in the second round of the playoffs if everything goes as we expect it to? So you don't want to let the team get an edge or think that they have an opportunity to beat you. I know New York has been has struggled against Boston this year, and Boston's done a really good job of limiting Karl-Anthony Towns. Jalen Brunson's finally back on the court. He's easing back and trying to get into playoff form, so that's a guy I'll keep an eye on. And he and Jaylen Brown are both guys who are trying to play to be eligible for end-of-season awards. So they've got some monetary incentives that they're playing for as well.
All right, so now the Warriors play the Suns in the game of which team got Jimmy Butler and which team didn't, because that really tells the story of this season. And, of course, Kevin Durant banged up. So the Warriors are 8-point favorites, total of 227 in this one. And Golden State right now is the 6th seed in the West, but they are tied with the Clippers and a game back of the Nuggets and just 2 back of the Lakers as they close out the season. I would have to imagine that Golden State is very well prepared to win this game tonight. But Gilbert, will they cover this line? This is a big one, 8 points.
Yeah, it all kind of depends on that availability of Kevin Durant. I know Jimmy Butler's the type of guy who takes a little extra motivation. The fact that it's a team that could have had him, so I expect him to step up. The Warriors are coming off of a tough loss to the Houston Rockets. Steph Curry only had 3 points in the game, only made 1 shot all game. So I expect him to bounce back in this game, and I actually expect Golden State to make some type of statement here, because this is a Phoenix team that is going to be desperate. They're fighting for their postseason lives here. Don't know if Kevin Durant's going to play. Don't know if Kevin Durant has played his final game in a Phoenix Suns uniform. And the Warriors have to win every game here to stay up to pace in the competitive Western Conference. You saw that log jam in the standings. So I expect to see a very motivated Warriors team tonight.
If you had to rank the teams, by the way, Gilbert, out west, where would the Warriors be for you as we get ready for the playoffs here? I mean, I certainly would not put them ahead of Oklahoma City, but could you make a case for them to be able to beat LA, Denver, Houston in a 7-game series?
Absolutely. Houston, I'm not sure, because Houston looked really good against them, and the game plan that they've been employing against them has worked, but I think the experience will come in the Warriors' favor. But I do see them being right there, Houston, LA, Golden State. They all have things they lean into, identities and talent, but Golden State and LA have that edge because they have all-time greats on their roster. So I put them above Houston slightly, but I would not be surprised if Houston kind of surprises some people and does some things they're not expected to do in the postseason because they have a great coach.
Always great to catch up, Gilbert. Thanks for picking the Gators at the beginning, and good to see them win it for you and I as we end the college basketball season. Thanks again, Gilbert, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Gilbert, a loyal Gator backer. How about that? Hopefully he does it again next year. Going to be a little different for the Gators. Going to be losing probably 3 or 4 guys from that team. And if you look at the odds on FanDuel, they're nowhere near the favorite for next year's NCAA championship. Adam Caplan is up next. The NFL draft is on deck. We'll discuss it next.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and you know, launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
He'll never stop shooting a basketball the rest of his life. All he's going to do is become one of those old, famous ex-players that's in the Hall of Fame, that's a legend, that shows up at games, just like his dad did. His dad shows up at games. His dad was never as good as he is. And his brother is the lost soul. Like, they don't even care about his broke ass. This guy, Steph Curry, can play forever.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Until the draft begins, coming up 2 weeks from Thursday, I'm going to need Adam Caplan to shake me around and help me understand why Shedeur Sanders is not going to be the number 2 pick of the draft. I'm not going to accept this or understand it until it actually happens, but that's why we have our SportsGrid insider Adam Caplan in the house. Adam, the draft is coming up. We're going to be seeing you a lot more for our coverage here and our pre-coverage as we get ready. Folks, after the Masters is over, it's all NFL draft here on SportsGrid. That's for sure. So, Adam, we could just move on from Cam Ward, I think. Everyone knows he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, and we could just move on from there. So, What is going on here? Why this mini smear campaign on Sanders, who I watched play better quarterback than anybody in the country last year, including Cam Ward for a period of time? I did see Colorado's defense give up a lot of points, and I did see him bring them back a lot. What am I missing here? What is all the scuttle that not only does he may not even go 3, he may go to 10? Like, why? What am I missing?
So, Craig, one thing that I think most of the media doesn't understand, and I know the fans don't understand, is that coaches can help drive draft boards. When coaches get involved in the draft process, after their season is over, typically mid to late February, they start watching tape, they go to pro days and so forth. So they get as much information as they can. They start to form an opinion. And the more you talk to coaches around the National Football League, it's like Cam Ward than everybody else. That's why a couple of months ago when you first asked me about the draft, I said Cam Ward will go to the Titans #1. I felt the same way to Caleb Williams. Doesn't mean that they're going to be great players. It's just that at their position, remember, the draft is a projection. It's not about now. It's about what's he going to look like 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Cam Ward has the total package, the arm strength. You don't worry about the athleticism. You worry about the total package, size, arm strength, and ability to play the position. He's just more talented than Shedeur Sanders. Now, so let's take this, what you said, at face value. Why wouldn't he go to Cleveland at #2? If you just took Travis Hunter, Shedeur's teammate at Colorado, okay, and you put Shedeur Sanders next to Travis Hunter, you'd say it's not even close who the better football player is. Travis Hunter is a much better football player.
Okay.
Corner, he's elite. Receiver, he's really good. He's just better. And that's the thing. You got to be careful with the quarterback position. I get it for Giant fans and Browns fans. They want this thing solved, okay, sooner rather than later, their future quarterback. But you don't want to force it. Craig, when you force it, you make mistakes. Shedeur Sanders, you mentioned top 10. I'm not even sold that he's going to go in the top 10.
Wow. Why, though? Why? What changed so much, Adam, between the middle of the college football season to now? I mean, because if we were doing this back then, let's be candid. Yes, you did say Cam Ward would be the #1 pick. But I think generally speaking, most people thought that Sanders would be 2 or 3. So what? I mean, I guess I'm still pushing you here. Like, what specifically changed on the player?
All right. It's not that it changed, okay? The games were over. So it's funny. So for my website, Inside the Birds, I will admit, put Shedeur Sanders at 3 for my first 2 mocks. But in the last 2 weeks, just taking a lot of opinions on where people see the top 10 and top 5. It's clear they don't think Shedeur Sanders is special at all. He's a nice college quarterback.
Okay.
People telling me he should go in the second round. You and I talked about this with Bo Nix last year. Okay. Bo Nix was widely regarded to be a mid-second round pick. The Broncos took him in the first round, which surprised people. By the way, they were right. He made the playoffs as a rookie quarterback. So yeah. I think he's somewhere in that vein. I think he's, quite frankly, anywhere from 20 to 40 is where he really should go. He's not quite, let's put it this way, to answer your question directly, he's not as good as I thought he was at the start of the process. Again, it's all tape-based. It's not like any games have been played. It's now that everything is, all the information is in, people are seeing him as he's in that next tier of quarterbacks. It's a 1-tier quarterback draft here. It's Cam more than everybody else.
Okay, fair enough. I am on Camp Sanders being the second best quarterback and a top 5 pick. I mean, I can understand Cleveland not taking him. If the Giants don't take him, I don't get it. So over 2.5 quarterbacks is -320. I don't even know why we're playing that game. We should play the 3 or 4.5 game. Honestly, I'm still bullish on Milroe going in the first round too. Before it's all said and done, some crazy team trades up at pick 27, 28. I see it every single season. But, I've been wrong before, Adam, so maybe I'll be wrong this time too. But I still feel 4 quarterbacks are going in the first round.
3 for sure. Look, I've learned my lesson with Tim Tebow. When Tebow went in the first round, anything could happen. When Mitch Trubisky went second overall, anything could happen. That's on your point about Milroe. Absolutely, you cannot rule out late in the first round because he's got a lot of ability.
Adam, I can't wait for you and I guess probably starting next week, to really chop this thing a little bit more up. And I know that you'll have full coverage for us here at SportsGrid throughout the draft. Thanks again for coming on. Have a great rest of your week.
You too.
We'll be right back talking NBA.
okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
He'll never stop shooting a basketball the rest of his life. All he's going to do is become one of those old, famous ex-players that's in the Hall of Fame, that's a legend, that shows up at games, just like his dad did. His dad shows up at games. His dad was never as good as he is. And his brother is the lost soul. Like, they don't even care about his broke ass. This guy, Steph Curry, can play forever.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's a little chilly up in the New York, New Jersey area, from what I understand. So Dexter Henry is going to have his hands full tonight with the Celtics-Knicks game. We'll see who's got the cold and hot buckets tonight. Dexter, welcome back here to NewsWire. Most people feel like there's a potential playoff preview brewing here, and the odds makers are telling us that more or less the two teams are even. I suppose maybe give a little bit of a slight lean to Boston, because clearly the Knicks would be favored if they thought they were better. Total of 221. We know the story with New York all season long, Dexter. Great against the bad teams, phenomenal against the middle of the road teams, but when they play a good team, they lose. Would this be a nice precursor going into the playoffs to show that they can beat one of these good teams?
It would, Craig, but a lot of it depends so much on, and I think this is reflected in the line and what we see. Who's Boston going to play? How seriously going to take this game? Now, Boston, they can still have a chance to catch the Cavs for the number 1 seed. The Cavs' magic number is 1, so Boston still does have something to play for. The Knicks, they're trying to wrap up the 3rd seed. Look, you hit it right on the head. The Knicks haven't beaten any good teams. They're 0-10 against the top teams in the league. 0-8 right there. And they have something to prove. And they also are trying to get guys back and healthy. Jalen Brunson is back. Mitchell Robinson back in the fold here. So they need to show a quality win. They also have Cleveland later this week. The Knicks do, but who knows who they'll play. So depending on who Boston plays tonight, if you're the Knicks, I think the biggest thing is even if you don't win, you want to come out and compete, right, Craig? You want to show that you can compete against this team and not get blown out in the way that they have. So that's the thing I'm looking for with the Knicks. Where's the fight from the start of this game? You're at home, at the Garden. You got to come out and show something.
Definitely so. And didn't really have any success against Boston at all this season, or Cleveland. Oklahoma City, nobody had success. I'm not going to get upset about that, but that's the bottom line.
That's fair.
They've struggled against those teams. I mean, OKC's been fantastic. So the Celtics to make the Eastern Conference Finals is not bettable. They're minus 600. So basically, the odds makers are telling us Boston is going to be playing deep into May, if not June. To win the Eastern Conference Finals, they're minus 150. And to win the finals, they're plus 185. I guess, Dexter, without even going into Boston, you'd have to tell me how you feel about Cleveland, because I'm assuming that that's kind of who they're going to have to run through at some point, if you feel strongly that Cleveland's going to make a run.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing you can tell by those odds too, right there, Craig, is that the odds makers think that the Celtics, if they do face the Knicks or whomever they face in the second round, they think they're very likely to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think making this bet does have a lot to do with how do you feel about Cleveland. Now, for me, I think Cleveland's a very good team. I think they're much improved. I love what Kenny Atkinson has done with this team and getting the most out of them. But I still think Boston's the best team in the East. So if you really like the Celtics to get back to the finals, which I do, that plus 185 is tantalizing right now. And I would say jump on it now because as they move through rounds, as I think most would expect them to do, that number is obviously going to drop. So I would get on that now. Now, do I think Boston can be pushed, Craig? Yes. And I think if the Knicks show something tonight, and I think the Knicks have been showing me some things, especially in their time without Jalen Brunson, that lets me think, okay, they're a little bit better defensively. They can do some things here. The emergence of OG Anunoby. I think Boston will get pushed in some of these series. I don't think it'll be a walkthrough to the finals as the way they had last year. But I still like them as I think they're the best team in the East. Despite the record, I still think they will get to the finals. I would take them over Cleveland. That's no shade to Cleveland. Okay. I think they've had a fantastic year, but I'd still take Boston.
All right, how about Golden State Phoenix tonight? Swan song coming for Phoenix here, basically. They're getting 8 points tonight against Golden State. They've been one of the best teams the last couple of months. That trade certainly has really changed their future fortunes, I would say. Do the Suns stand a chance to even cover this game tonight? I guess we need an injury report a little bit later, right?
The answer is no, because they'll be playing without Kevin Durant, and their record without Kevin Durant is abysmal. The Suns are cooked. They showed some fight the other night here in New York against the Knicks, but they're just done. I know they're still mathematically alive for that last playoff spot. The Warriors, they're looking to get right. They've had a couple of tough games recently, and I think they're going to bounce back in a major way here. Maybe some people will love the Suns getting the 8 points. I don't. I would take the Warriors to cover in this one. I think the Warriors come out with a big-time performance. Their defense has been rejuvenated. Draymond Green's been playing well. Jimmy Butler, we know the numbers with him. So give me the Warriors to cover here against the Suns in Phoenix.
Yeah, a dangerous team right now going into the playoffs. By the way, there's going to be a team that's not going to make the West play-in, and certainly these are all teams that you could say, potentially would be better off if they were in the East. I feel like we played this game a lot, Dexter, through the years. Memphis, Denver, right? Memphis, Denver, the Clippers, Golden State, and Minnesota, all really good teams. I mean, I've talked on this show how I do think that Minnesota could scare Oklahoma City based on their matchups that I've seen when they played this year. So Denver, I know, has slipped back a little bit. I didn't think that we would even have this conversation about them. That one-man show's rolled on for them.
I don't even, it's funny. I'm looking at these odds, Craig, and I'm like, who am I taking here? This is so tough right now in terms of being the odd team out here. I don't know. Minnesota, they're tough because they've played well recently. Their defense is still top six. There's top six defense in the league. So it's really hard with these teams. The Clippers have also played really good defense, and they're very scrappy. These games are so tight. If I had to put odds on who I think could be left out here, I'd probably go with Memphis. If I had to put a bet down, I'd go with Memphis because they've just been floundering. The change in the head coach, I would say they could get left out of the top six. They could likely drop down into the play-in, which is the spot they're in now. And it wouldn't shock me if they didn't make the whole thing. I'd probably go Memphis out of those group of teams that you saw there. And it's really just because of everything that's gone around with them. But you never know. Sometimes a team can rally in the last week of the season, get a new life in the play-in tournament, and you will see that's a wild card here, Craig. It's the play-in tournament, right? Who gets in? What's the matchups, which is such unknown then. But if I had to throw money on one team right now based on how they're playing, I'd probably put my money down on Memphis as a team to not make it here.
Okay, fair enough. And again, we're not going to know these playoff matchups for a while because of this play-in tournament next week. And Oklahoma City certainly and Houston will await their fate to see who they end up playing. But as of right now, there's still a possibility. And again, a few games left here, Dexter, that the Lakers play the Warriors in that first round. And my gosh, that would be must-see TV if that ends up happening, because that'll be the highest rated series of any of them going on, with two future Hall of Famers and even more squaring off. But a lot of seeding business still to happen in between then.
Well, here's the thing, Craig. Remember a couple years ago when they played in the play-in tournament, how much juice there was for just that one game, and we got ourselves an epic game in that one. Series between the Lakers and Warriors would be a lot of things that I think a lot of basketball fans would want. Also, NBA fans definitely want to see this one. I know that would be very intriguing, especially with the trades that both of these teams make. Obviously, the Lakers acquiring Luka Doncic and the Warriors acquiring Jimmy Butler. So there's still some fantastic matchups. So I think this is why, if you're an NBA fan, you're going to be really watching over this final week, because the seeding is so up in the air. The teams are separated by so little, from 3 to 8. The other day, it was a game and a half separating all those teams. So these games are really important. I think it's good that we have these races in the final week of the NBA season. But if we get that Lakers-Warriors first-round matchup, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, Dexter, biggest storyline for you between now and the time the season ends next Sunday?
Well, I think for me, it's who can close strong here, right? Who can close strong here? We've seen the Rockets in the West get up to the 2 seed. Who can really solidify themselves as a team that are going to get home court advantage in the Western Conference? That's a big storyline for me to watch out West. Who's going to get that 3 and 4 spots there? That's really the important thing. And I would say in the East, for me, it's what happens in that 4, 5, 6 range. Do the Pistons end up 6? Do they play the Knicks? Do the Bucks, who've come on really strong as of late, do they get into that 5th spot and play Indiana? Those are the things I think to watch over the next couple of days here in the NBA. But Greg, can't predict it. It's going to be fun. NBA fans should enjoy this.
Yeah, can't wait till the play-in next week. Thanks again, Dexter. Really appreciate it. We'll catch up again and talk NBA next week.
Yep, so we'll do the same. Stay warm, Greg.
All right, coming up next, Jeff Levering is going to join us, covering the Milwaukee Brewers for their radio and television networks. They have any pitchers these days ready to throw out there? My gosh, they injuries. We'll talk to them next.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and you know, launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
He'll never stop shooting a basketball the rest of his life. All he's going to do is become one of those old, famous ex-players that's in the Hall of Fame, that's a legend, that shows up at games, just like his dad did. His dad shows up at games. His dad was never as good as he is. And his brother is the lost soul. Like, they don't even care about his broke ass. This guy, Steph Curry, can play forever.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the mood between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always great to catch up with Jeff Levering and the Brewers Broadcast Network, radio, television, covering the Brewers now several and many years. And a lot more to go here in the future, no doubt. Jeff, thanks for being with us here on NewsWire. Really appreciate it. And my gosh, this has been a strange start, to say the least, for the Brewers. And I know that pitching is always at a premium, and I'll wake up in the morning and check who's healthy and who's hurt. But it seems like every morning I wake up, another Brewers pitcher goes on the injured list. So Freddie Peralta, do we have the bubble wrap for this guy? Who else is left now at this point?
Yeah, it's Freddie, and he's pitching today, thankfully, for against the Colorado Rockies. But man, it is crazy to see what has gone on with this Brewers pitching staff over the course of the beginning of the season, started in spring training. I will say that there are some positive signs of Tobias Myers coming back pretty soon. Jose Quintana will make his debut more than likely on this road trip in Arizona. So there are some bright spots of guys that are coming back, but Nestor Cortez goes down. It is a patchwork bit of pitching for what the Brewers are trying to accomplish right now, and they've done this in the past, right? They've lost a lot of guys, but they have found people to step up, and they have taken advantage of those opportunities. And the Brewers have still been to the playoffs 6 of the last 7 years, despite some of the issues that they've had injury wise.
Yeah, it's just been a factory of the player development through the years, and that continues. Chad Patrick, tell me a little bit about Chad Patrick here, because he's caught me by surprise thus far.
I think he's caught everybody by surprise. I mean, he was the guy who came back to the Brewers from the A's for Abraham Toro a couple of years ago, and he was the International League Pitcher of the Year last year. 14-1, had an ERA under 3. Makes the team out of spring training because of some of the injuries, and as we've discussed, it's an opportunity for somebody to step up. And Chad Patrick in his first big league start goes 4 2/3 scoreless innings. It was the day after the Brewers had given up 10 or more runs in 3 consecutive ball games, right? It was torpedo bats and all the other stuff. And then you come back home and give up 11 to the Kansas City Royals. And the Brewers really needed a good start. And he gave them a great start on Tuesday of last week. And then he goes out and dominates on Sunday too. So he's really done a nice job of finding his way in. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he took the number 39 from the Brewers. The last person to wear the number 39 in Milwaukee was Corbin Burns. It was unused last year,
Yeah.
and he is a model for what Chad Patrick is trying to do pitching wise. Cutters on the outside corner, sinkers down, and he tries to model his stuff after Corbin Burns, and it's fitting that he's in number 39. He's looked really good his first 2 starts.
Yeah, definitely so. And a lot of people have asked me if is it legit, is it not? I'm like, I don't know. I got to catch a start here one of these days. I've been, watching so much Marlins baseball. All right, let's go over to the offense here. No surprise that Jackson Chourio has led the pace for the Brewers thus far. Another player internationally, you could speak to player development. Gave him that contract extension, and my gosh, has he looked good as well? So far, so good, all things considered. And you're talking about a star in the making. I don't think there's any question that he's getting closer.
He was one of the best players in Major League Baseball for the last 4 months of last season. Really struggled, and it was really a series in Miami where he came out of his shell last year. He had a tough series in Miami, and right after that was over, from June 1 on, he was right up there with one of the best players in Major League Baseball numbers wise. And he's carried that over. And there were a lot of people that thought the sky was falling after he went 0 for 5 with 5 Ks on opening day. But I would say that he has recovered nicely. He's had a hit in every single game since. He's hitting for power. Had a 2-homer game on Sunday against Cincinnati. So Jackson Chourio is leading the way offensively. Bryce Terang is right there with him. He's had a hit in every single game so far. And Sal Frelick, a couple of young guys, have really stepped up, because Christian Yelich and William Contreras have done next to nothing so far this season. So they've needed a couple of guys to step up, and it's been the young guys in that core of Frelick, Terang, and Jackson Chourio that have done it so far.
Yeah, and Terang is Frelick, I know, of course, he was a first round pick. Terang is a great story though, because he's another one of those, like, Brewers can let Willie Adames go type guys, because we can just plug some of these players on and let them develop a little bit more. I mean, he was really good last year, Jeff. So I just wonder, like, it's not just a hot start anymore. Like, this may just be a legitimately really good player the Brewers have.
Yeah, this is just him, right? It's not just an aberration. He wins the Platinum Glove last year. He's the best second baseman, I think, defensively. You could argue that Andres Jimenez now of Toronto is he's phenomenal at second base, but I think Terang's right there with him, and he would have won the shortstop job had he not hurt his shoulder at the end of spring training. He's back to second base. It was kind of a lesser of two evils. I mean, you're in a really good spot with Joey Ortiz at short defensively, or Bryce Terang. So now you're super solid up the middle with Ortiz over at short and with Terang over at second base. And just a question of whether the offense is going to show up. He stole 50 bases last year to Bryce Terang. I think hitting with more consistent pop has been a thing that he's been trying to do. He added a little bit of weight. He's changed his batting stance just a bit. But Bryce Terang is going to be a guy in the middle of the order, top of the order for the Brewers for a long time.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Jeff, you and I usually end our conversations. I know we have year after year in the past few years with me checking in on checking in on Bob Uecker with you. Usually, Ueck, of course, for several years did not make the trip to South Florida. So when I see you, I did not see him. Certainly, everybody knows by now that he passed away. I know I believe there's some really big honoring coming up for him as well. But that must have been, I mean, I'm guessing maybe I saw a lot of it in the articles that I was written was he was hiding his illness for a long period of time. I'm guessing you being with him every day, you probably had an idea, but it caught a lot of people by surprise at the time, and an all-time living legend leaving us far too soon.
Yeah, we miss him. The last homestand was really hard. I mean, opening day in Milwaukee, without him there, we left his chair open, the place where he sat every single day for 54 years. We left it open, and there was heaviness in the ballpark on that Monday. The first game that the Brewers played at home without him being the announcer since 1970. More than anything, he was an amazing broadcaster, of course, and hilarious. But he was a great friend to everybody. And one of the great lessons I learned from him was that you treat everybody the same, no matter what. And that's one thing that I will always take with me. He treated the owner of the team the same as he did the guy in the warehouse. So for me, we miss our friend. Not a day goes by where we don't think about him. But he's always with us, no matter what.
Yeah, it's truly one of the greats in the history of the game. Jeff, thanks so much for making time for me here on the show. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure I'll see you down the road, if not here in South Florida. Thanks for coming on.
Sounds good. Take care, Craig.
All right, Jeff Levering joining us here. We'll wrap everything up next.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
He'll never stop shooting a basketball the rest of his life. All he's going to do is become one of those old, famous ex-players that's in the Hall of Fame, that's a legend, that shows up at games, just like his dad did. His dad shows up at games. His dad was never as good as he is. And his brother is the lost soul. Like, they don't even care about his broke ass. This guy, Steph Curry, can play forever.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the mood between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. We've got Masters coverage all week long, beginning Thursday here on SportsGrid, and our in-game live coverage this weekend. We'll dive into a Masters topic here as we end the show. Also, The home run leader is Aaron Judge, but he does have company. And we'll wrap up the show with a little ode to the Gators. Time now for some last licks. All right, Phil Mickelson will be participating in the Masters at Augusta this week. Last weekend, he was in South Florida. Those of you who may or may not know, this LIV Golf tournament is still going on. And they had a tournament in South Florida last week. Mickelson actually has been playing pretty well on the course recently. And funny enough, he was asked about, because he's getting closer and closer to winning one of these LIV Golf tournaments. I think it may happen. He was asked whether or not it would mean more to him to win one of the events on the Saudi tour here, on the LIV Golf, or another green jacket. Boy, Phil Mickelson did a really good job saying absolutely nothing, basically saying, next question, not going to answer it. I think it's fair to say LIV Golf came around at a time we really needed it to push the PGA Tour. But you do have to ask yourself the question, if all of these guys from LIV Golf, not just Phil Mickelson, but Jon Rahm and Brooks Koepka and a lot of these other players who are actually playing in the Masters this week, what are we doing taking this long to consolidate the LIV and PGA Tour? We did like weeks and months of shows of this happening, and it never did. Have to think eventually this is going to come together. Why they can't get this figured out, I have no idea. But Phil usually does play well at Augusta. We'll keep the light open on for him, although he's a huge underdog if you want to take him to win this week. I think hundreds to one to win the Masters. All right, so guess who's got company in the home run chase for 60, 61, 62? It is Aaron Judge along with that guy. Do you know who that guy is watching at home? Do you even have a clue? I do, but you probably don't. He plays for the Sacramento Athletics, and his name is Tyler Soderstrom. The A's are playing in Sacramento this year, and there are a ton of home runs being hit because outside of Denver, Colorado, Sacramento has the highest elevation of any ballpark in the country. Did you know that? Well, now you do, even higher than Arizona. So therefore, balls are flying out. Soderstrom hit 2 home runs last night. He now has 6 on the season. So why are we not talking about this guy hitting 60 home runs? I just did fantasy sports today, and one of our shows was about Aaron Judge hitting 60 and nothing about anybody else. Maybe we should fire up A's talk about hitting 50, 60 home runs this season. They're going to be playing at elevation all year, just like they do in Denver, and maybe they have better players than they do in Colorado. The Rockies have not been good for a really long time. Keep an eye on the offensive stats coming out of that stadium. Win or lose, runs are going to be scored. Tyler Soderstrom and Aaron Judge are your home run leaders thus far with 6 as we approach week 2 of the baseball season. All right, finally, last night I was watching my Gators take care of business against the Houston Cougars, and we have a little show here called Bracket Central, and they may have been like in-game live Bracket Central on SportsGrid. Not sure what the exact title was. So we had Ben Stevens on the air, along with Kevin Walsh and Coach James Young. And Ben is hosting the show and, calling it right down the middle. This is what's happening. Here's who's winning. Here's who's losing. And then we have Kevin Walsh and Coach Young just outwardly rooting the whole game against the Gators because, they bet or something like that. Like, Coach Young picked Houston to win it all. And Kevin obviously bet on Houston. I mean, the guy afterwards said that congrats to the Gators, they did nothing. Like, what are we doing here? So, I can't stand that here. I'm an impartial guy, but I'm honest when it comes to my Gators, okay? And I believe Kevin didn't go to Houston, and neither did Coach. And you should have seen their face. Oh, you didn't see their faces after the Gators win last night? I got the faces for you because I was able to find them oh, there they are on social media. There's very upset hosts of ours after losing a bet and not winning the bracket. Kevin Walsh, Coach Young, guys, it's okay. You can say the Gators were the better team. You could say the Gators won without being upset and distraught at the end of our broadcast. I mean, come on. We're supposed to be impartial here on SportsGrid. We're a sports betting network. Win or lose, call it down the middle. That's what I always do, sort of. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks again to Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News for coming on. In addition, thanks to Jeff Levering for the Brewers Broadcast Network. And again, thanks to everybody for being part of our show today. Adam Caplan from SportsGrid Insider and the NFL as well. All right, coming up next, Smiley Kaufman's got your latest on the Masters. That's followed by Game Time Decisions Pharrell Coast to Coast just before that, in-game live game day, and then Gabe has Sports Rage tonight. I think Gabe took Houston too. Didn't he take Houston also? Well done. Well done, everyone. Well done. Thanks to Luke, for Frank. I'm Craig. Go Gators.